So let me just hop right into the Yang town hall. I was a little perplexed by this town hall. When I first watched it, I was unimpressed. I'm not going to lie to you. The whole UBI thing made him seem like kind of a one-trick pony. And to be honest with you, CNN kind of gave him an easy town hall event. There weren't really any pressing questions. The question that was probably the most pressing would be the white supremacist angle, which was kind of a reach. And that's probably the question that he might have done the best job on. I'm not even joking. I don't think it was kind of the way they kind of pushed that issue was kind of unfair. But nonetheless, even with that question, that was probably one of the easiest town halls that I've seen any of the candidates do, which made me a little skeptical of Yang, only because of what I know about politics. If you know anything about politics, Yang is supposed to be considered a quote-unquote outsider, and he hasn't really been treated like one. Yang's supposed to be considered a threat to the establishment, and he hasn't been treated like one. And I have a pretty damn good idea why that is. But we'll analyze some of what I believe were the most important and pertinent questions and his responses to them. And we'll see if I can hopefully help you all reach the understanding that I reached. So he was asked about the jobs in the Midwest and how automation has contributed to a lot of the issues keeping jobs in the U.S. and how that actually led up to Trump's victory. His response was interesting. Although it was partially true, I took some issue with it. It was partially true. He said that automation was actually responsible for Trump's victories and that most jobs in the Midwest, in the Rust Belt in general, went to automation. But that's actually not what happened. Well, one, this is where I always come back to saying, I understand that Yang may be a nice enough guy, and he seems like he has a pretty decent head on his shoulders, but it's politically naive. It wasn't automation that first of all caused most of the job loss in the Midwest, in the Rust Belt in general. It wasn't. It was like disastrous trade deals, like NAFTA, like the one they tried to push with TPP, and things like that, like even NATO. These disastrous trade deals and outsourcing jobs, factories moving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's what caused a lot of the job loss. And most people, well, I can't even say that. A lot of people in the Midwest know this. Those who are politically conscious know this. This was a topic of conversation regularly during the debates last year, and it's still last election, and it's still a topic of conversation today. Even Trump understood that it was disastrous trade deals that caused a lot of the jobs to be moved overseas. Unfortunately, Trump is still moving jobs overseas, so it doesn't make it much better. But even Trump knew this. But in my humble opinion, it seems to me that he is either, once again, politically naive, or he doesn't understand how things work as much as he wants to believe he does. Another point I want to make was where he said automation is responsible for Trump's victory. Do you think it might have anything to do with the 14 million Democrats who dropped their registration and refused to vote for Dems because of what Hillary Clinton, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and the Democratic Party did to Bernie Sanders and his supporters? I mean, 14 million votes. Don't you think that could sway an election, especially in some key states? Out of curiosity. Do you think it could have had anything to do with the fact that Hillary was just really a horrible politician? She didn't campaign in Ohio. She didn't campaign in Pennsylvania. States, she didn't campaign in Michigan. States that have traditionally went blue, even with the loss of jobs, to be honest with you, they did not go blue this time. And yes, loss of jobs may have had something to do with that, but also there was something more. The truth is, if you were, unless you were living in a cave or under a rock, you'd have to be a blind man not to see how much effect the Democratic primary election had on the outcome of the general election. You don't only have to look at that. Just look at what happened with the Green Party. The Green Party received record numbers of registrations. Jill Stein received record numbers of fundraising in the Green Party for a presidential candidate for the Green Party. And then the Green Party itself had record numbers in fundraising. So there was a reverberating effect that took place because of how the Democrats cheated Bernie Sanders and treated his supporters that ultimately affected the outcome of the election, pretending that if that automation is even 50% responsible or 75% responsible, let alone 100% responsible for the election of Donald Trump, in my opinion, is politically naive. And I would be less worried about that if he would have mentioned the words NAFTA, if he would have talked about TPP and how dangerous it could have been and would have been and will be if they try to reintroduce it. But he didn't say any of those things. In fact, one of the things that worried me is that he refused to critique any major quote unquote corporatist policy or any major monopolist corporation. Like, I don't understand what his deal is with not wanting to call a spade when it comes to disastrous trade deals, wage stagnation due to corporations buying out politicians and things like that. So I didn't really like that answer. At best, he's politically naive. At worst, he was being purposely deceptive to push his motive, and I didn't really like that. It rubbed me the wrong way. He actually said in that same answer that the goal should not be to save jobs. It should be to better increase our lifestyle. But I'm like, the goal is absolutely to save jobs, in my opinion. The jobs will manifest in different ways, even as automation becomes a thing, right? There were people who couldn't sell pagers anymore. Once they stopped selling pagers, guess what they started selling? Cell phones. Once they stopped selling flip phones, what did they start selling? Android. Once they, in iPhones. Once MP3 players went out of style, iPods went out. Once iPods became, more automated, oh my goodness, what's it? iPod touches. There are more jobs created out of automation. The jobs, he is correct, isn't the issue. And he even brings this up later on where he discusses income inequality. But to say that saving jobs isn't the goal, I don't know how I looked at that. I don't know how I just saying. Now, he also makes another bold claim that he doesn't really substantiate or explain. I went to his website, didn't really explain it there. I watched a couple of other interviews, didn't really explain it there either. And of course, I'd be more than willing to, if anybody has this information, I'd be more than willing to listen to it. He says that there will be 2 million jobs created through UBI, but doesn't explain how. And I don't really know how. Because if you've watched the town hall, he says over and over again that he doesn't want UBI to be overly complex. He doesn't even want to create a tiered system. And he's all even about giving the money to CEOs and things like that and not discriminating against who gets the money. But then he doesn't want a bureaucratic, he doesn't want bureaucracy becoming or overcomplicating the UBI and making it more expensive. But then he says it'll create 2 million jobs and doesn't exactly explain how. If it's a federal UBI, wouldn't that just mean that you might have a federal office in DC and you have like a kind of like a DMV across the nation, but you wouldn't need that many people. I mean, like a DMV doesn't have millions of employees. I mean, it's not a federal, DMV isn't federal, but if you added up every single employee from the DMV across the nation, you think that equals 1 million people? It does not. So I'm not exactly sure where this 2 million came from. He doesn't cite a case study. He doesn't cite a think tank, and he doesn't give us a reference. But he just randomly says 2 million jobs, and people believed it. Nobody really clapped for it, so I'm pretty sure they were probably thinking about the same. They probably had the same question. I don't no idea where the jobs are coming from. So I would like clarification on that. It would be cool if it did create 2 million jobs, but I would like clarification on that. Now, when he's asked how does he know this is going to work, he cites Alaska, right? Which is weird because I thought he was going to cite Hawaii, but he did not. He cited Alaska, and he says it worked in Alaska. And he said the reason that he wants to keep it literally $1,000 across the board, no matter if you're the poorest of the poor, richest of the rich, because once again, he says Alaska does it this way, which is not actually true. 1, 2, he says once again, because of the bureaucratic, he said he doesn't want to deal with the expensive bureaucracy that could come about if we try to create tiered systems based off of income. The problem with that logic is, what he doesn't say is that Alaska only gives out $1,000 to $2,000, not a month, but a year. That's a big difference. Alaska's population, obviously, is far less, but I'm not even really as concerned with the population, because the population is kind of irrelevant when you're talking about how much money we have and the fact that we do print basically our own money. Our currency at the moment is sovereign. But $1,000 to $2,000 a year, yeah, we get that too. It's called a tax return. And what he also fails to mention is that in Alaska, there's a tiered system. If you make more money, you get less in return. That's a big difference, don't you think? And to me, personally, it came off disingenuous to pretend like the UBI in Alaska was for the most part the same thing as what he is proposing, but it's paid for in a completely different way. It is given at a completely different timetable, and it's on a tiered system, which would involve the bureaucracy. And it's on a tiered system, right? And it's effective, apparently. But it involved the bureaucracy that Andrew Yang wants to avoid. So, I would be interested to know what you think about it, because like I said, I feel like it's disingenuous to leave out that very important fact. At minimum, oh, by the way, it is on a tiered system, and oh, by the way, it only gets shuffled out once a year. I feel like that's something important that he should have brought up if he's going to try to say, well, Alaska is the reason that UBI will work. Now, he was asked how he was going to pay for this. And because he's a businessman and because he has some experience with the government, I honestly thought he was going to say something to the extent of MMT, which is modern monetary theory. Basically modern monetary theory. Modern monetary theory does say that we basically print our own money, that we have a fiat currency, that our currency is sovereign. Now, all that is true. The catch to modern monetary theory is that the United States is on a petrodollar, which is why we basically do whatever the hell Saudi Arabia says. And also part of the reason why we put like Venezuela, for example, on a Muslim ban list, which didn't really make any sense to people. But it was because it was the same day that they left the petrodollar. If you all recall, that happened last year. I want to say in November or December, where they left the petrodollar, and then they were immediately on the ban list, because when we put you on the ban list, that means we're about to invade your country and establish a coup, because the petrodollar is how we're allowed to basically do what the hell we want to with our money and not pay any debt back. But as a businessman, I thought that he was going to say, modern monetary theory, but he didn't say that. Now he did say we're going to, put a tax on the goods that corporations produce. The problem is he didn't limit that to corporations. He plans on increasing taxes on small businesses. Because, like, what if you're a corporation that doesn't produce goods? Like, what if you're a corporation that hires a bunch of independent contractors? For example, like, is the NFL, for example, as a corporation, are they going to be taxed on every single play a football player has? Like, I don't get it. So what? It doesn't seem to be as much of a burden on corporations here as much as it absolutely would be on manufacturers, producers, small businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And it would actually hurt small businesses if he taxes it that way. He places less emphasis on corporations once again, which is a pattern I'm starting to see. But then he says, well, here's where the money's really going to come from. He said, well, we're going to do things like cut other entitlement programs. I had to rewind that shit when I heard it. I said, excuse me. What do you mean cut other entitlement programs? So I had to go to his website. Went to his website. No, I did not hear incorrectly. He meant Social Security. He meant food stamps. He meant, if you're like in New York, for example, daycare services that are extremely important and also based off of income. What the hell? And then what makes it even worse is that the man said, well, if you're receiving Social Security, you can choose between Social Security and UBI. Why can't I get both? I thought there was no catch. But there is a catch. Oh, but it doesn't stop at, and mind you, the average person only collects about $1,300 in Social Security. Think about it. If you are collecting Social Security, right? Especially if you're about 45 or 50, it means you're collecting it because you're disabled. But he even said you'll have the choice to give up your disability or collect UBI or the reverse. But if you give up, but if you give up your Social Security and you're getting $1,000 a month, how are you going to be able to work? You're disabled. So, and if you don't take UBI, there's a good chance, by the way, because if you're the president and you are wanting this particular policy to thrive, look at what happened with Obamacare, right? When you want your policy to thrive, then you'll push whatever incentive you have to get your policy to be adopted by the general public. So what does that mean? He already told you what he's planning on doing. He's planning on cutting Social Security. You know, the entitlement that you paid for? And there's a big problem with that. He says, I don't think that people really understand the depth of entitlement programs. It isn't just Social Security. It isn't just food stamps. Like I said, how far do you think $1,000 a month will go in New York City for a single mother with 2 kids? If you cut entitlement programs, do you think that she'll still be able to afford, because she has an extra $1,000 a month? Do you know how much a 1-bedroom apartment costs in New York? If you're in a decent area, $1,600 a month. No, I lied. If you're in a decent area, $2,000 to $2,100 a month. That's a decent price. $2,100 a month. So on top, because people forget, people are like, oh no, well, because food stamps are paid for through the state. No, only partially through the state. A lot of that money comes from federal funding that Yang is planning on cutting. What if you have a young child and you're a single mother and you're trying to get daycare, but all of a sudden your daycare privileges are cut? Maybe before you only paid $100 a month or $200 a month, but because Yang cut federal funding to entitlement programs to fund the UBI, now you're spending that $1,000 that he gave you to do the same thing that the entitlement program did. But it's even worse than that, because he is even saying that, well, yeah, even with the VA, I'm a retired disabled veteran. I'm okay. I just have asthma, so I can't be in the military, and I can't do a lot of physical activity like I would like. And I have bad knees. You get stationed on Fort Bragg, you get bad knees. It kind of comes with the job. When you start talking about messing with veterans' money, that's a problem for me. Not even as a veteran, but there are a lot of vets with PTSD who, because of their disability, right? Once you hit a certain percentage on your disability, you are permanently entitled to TRICARE, which is obviously military health insurance. And he is saying their option, of course, would be to switch off of disability and go to UBI, or keep their TRICARE. But he's not for Medicare for all either, which is something else we're going to talk about. So and he, once again, he thinks that the disability for military is an entitlement, and it is not an entitlement, but he plans on reducing that too. He said this. This is out of his words, his mouth, not mine. Eventually, he will start creating quote unquote incentives to switch out of your entitlement program, people. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable. I'm not buying what he's selling right now. But I gave him a little bit, I'm giving him a little bit more time to try and win me over, but it didn't happen here in this town hall. So let me continue. Like I said, he's not for Medicare for all. Some people kept saying that he was, but he isn't. He's for Medicare buy-in, public option. It's your choice to have Medicare, which means, once again, he's either politically naive or being purposely obtuse, because Medicare for all is fundamentally different than a Medicare buy-in. Because Medicare buy-in, that's basically what older people have right now, the senior citizens. It sucks. It sucks so hard. And what makes it even worse, in my opinion, is that Yang seems to have an understanding of why Medicare for all is necessary, but his conclusion is that let's keep private insurance companies here anyway, and we'll have a Medicare buy-in or a quote-unquote public option. And I'm like, okay, let me hear what he has to say about this. Well, I understand that we're paying too much for healthcare right now. That's okay, cool. And prescription drug prices are too high. Okay, cool. So I'm proposing a Medicare buy-in. What are you going to do about the prescription drug prices? I'm going to tell those companies, hey, stop charging us so much. What? You're not creating any incentive, because the healthcare lobbyists are still around. Do you all remember something? Because I do. Remember Obama? Remember how his started out as a public option? How many options do you have now, people? Out of curiosity. Not many, right? Not very many. And it's only gotten worse every single year, because when you're in a program or when you have a policy like this, you have to damn near have control of everything before it can get pushed through. So, he's not for Medicare for all either. And that's a pretty, I mean, damn, bro, that's the litmus test of all litmus tests. And what's worse is that he pretends like he is for Medicare for all. But it's just like Beto O'Rourke's Medicare for all. Medicare for all. Who won it? He also doesn't want to reconstruct the big trusts, like the trust laws. So obviously you all are, I'm sure, recall the robber barons, if you will, that forced the government to finally implement antitrust laws. Remember when J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, oh man, Carnegie, that's the steel company, or is that the railroad company? Either way, you remember what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So antitrust laws were created. These antitrust laws were the only reason that a company like Apple could eventually come into play, because Microsoft was getting away with some ridiculous stuff, right? Antitrust laws are what allowed for cricket phones to be available for lower income communities, because before AT&T had a monopoly on basically everything. It was like between AT&T and Sprint, but AT&T at one point had like a 95% monopoly, and they were forced to be broken up. But Yang legitimately says, "Oh, Amazon stores are closing all over the country because Amazon is like 30% of the market or something to that extent," which is probably true. It's true. But we also know that In-Q-Tel, which was the CIA's venture capitalist firm where they do all their investments. They invested in Facebook. They invested in Amazon. They're the reason that Google Earth was created. In-Q-Tel is the reason that Bezos is so rich and that Amazon took off, which is CIA investment capitalist firm, because they were trying to monopolize Amazon. And because of that, we've seen some pretty disastrous results. If we enforce our current antitrust laws and grow them, develop them, and evolve them, then we can stop things like Amazon from taking place, where they have a disproportionate effect on the workforce now because they're underpaying their workers. They're working in horrible conditions. And basically no one could do anything about it because Amazon has enough money to buy off everybody in this country twice over. That's why when he says things like, the companies aren't the problem. The corporations aren't the problem. The corporations are kind of the problem, Yang. They're kind of the problem. He says that union membership declined over decades, and therefore he doesn't really want to strengthen unions. And he blames that on automation as well. I don't know. He makes a lot of logical leaps during this town hall. He said the union membership declined because of automation over decades. And I'm thinking, like, do you think that has anything to do with right to work states that disallow unions, that strike down and shoot down unions regularly? And whatever, even if you have a union nominally or in name only, they'll still figure out ways to usurp you. So he says things, it's like he almost is like, I guess he's like one track minded. He's like, and he's convinced himself that every problem is an automation problem. Automation is real, Automation will cause issues. But, bruh, come on. Like, unions were being busted up before automation was even like a big deal, because right to work states were causing it. Am I right or wrong? I mean, y'all can let me know. Let me hurry up and try to get through the rest of this. He did disavow the white supremacy stuff, so that's good. Some people believe it, some people don't. I'm going to take him at his word for that. I do believe that because it's not like he's very politically active. Clearly he's not like an orator, like a political orator. I mean, like he's not always, until recently, he wasn't always speaking in front of political crowds. So he didn't know how to be politically correct when he said some of the things that he said in the past. I'm not going to hold him. I'm not going to punish him and pummel him for that. I'll let his words and his actions do the talking there. But I was glad to hear that he disavowed the white supremacy stuff, and he said that his campaign disavowed anything even remotely related to white supremacy. So that's good. His immigration rhetoric, though, is a little bit different. It's a little bit different. He did got caught quoting some Trump-like rhetoric. He says we have a quote-unquote migrant crisis at the border. I don't like that. Because, well, we don't have a migrant crisis. We don't. But I will admit, his solutions weren't all that bad. He was like, we need to strengthen the people on the ground, not by investing in like ICE, but creating better facilities to create a more streamlined immigration process and things like that. His policies are pretty good there. Or at least the rhetoric behind it. I don't know if he really understands the problem though, because when you refer to something as a migrant crisis, you got to give me reasons, right? Which once again goes back to, is he politically naive? He's like, the problem is we haven't invested enough. That seems to always be his answer to everything. We haven't invested enough. We haven't invested enough. We haven't invested enough. No, if there is a crisis to be discussed at the border, then he needs to understand how it started. For example, if I ask the same question to Tulsi Gabbard, well, what do you think about the immigration policies, right? Specifically referring to Central America and South America. Well, the first thing we need to stop doing is establishing coups and interfering in people's governments and propping up dictatorial regimes or totalitarian regimes. And then that would stop causing people or pressuring people to leave their homes to come to the United States where they feel safer. A lot of these people are political refugees and trying to look for a better life that doesn't involve their kids ending up in a gang and getting killed, or their family losing their jobs due to economic hardship because of the United States sanctions. So first, we have to deal with the military-industrial complex and everything that comes with it. And then it will probably be a lot easier to manage the border over time. And then she would probably get into the border stuff. Because if you don't deal with the root of the problem, if you're only going to slap a bandage on it, you're going to keep having the same problem over and over again. Couple more things. I didn't like his answer for affordable housing. His answer for affordable housing was he wants more affordable housing. It didn't look like he had an understanding at all of how to do that or what direction to take. I'm glad that he's for more affordable housing, but he didn't even mention the term rent control, which, by the way, is a little problematic because if you're going to give UBI to every single person in the country, don't you think you might want to attach something like rent control to that? Because if I'm literally everybody else, like if I'm a businessman, if I'm a renter, I'm just going to raise the price across the board. Why? Because you didn't create social mobility. You gave everybody the same exact amount of money. There is no social mobility. The income inequality is exactly the same. It's literally the same. I thought, well, maybe he's giving it to everybody under a certain, under a certain income. No, everybody gets the exact same amount, which means income inequality doesn't get addressed. It doesn't make any sense. Like, if I live in Compton, right? Everybody around me just got the same UBI, but the problem is that upper middle class neighborhood down the street, everybody there just got UBI. So if you're, maybe that family in the middle class is a nuclear family where the husband and the wife just got $2,000 a month. They just got an extra $24,000 a year to reinvest, whereas mine is just trying to keep up with the fact that my landlord just raised the rent because he knows I made more money. It's not like I just got enough money to now move up into that upper middle class or to that middle class area. That upper middle class family didn't get enough money to, they have enough money to do better where they're at, but not enough money to move classes or move tax brackets. So income inequality isn't actually being addressed with UBI. I don't even know what it's doing. I guess it's kind of an improvement on your current lifestyle, but a minor one. Because if everybody gets UBI, think of what a lender would do, right? Because he doesn't control banks. And the only way to get some type of regulation on banks is that you're going to have to do a lot. Like, you're going to have to get a lot of stuff through Congress that I doubt is going to happen. Because banks buy off Congress. So why would a bank, because here's what happened. Why would a bank say, let me get your income? Of course, you're going to put the $1,000 down, but they're going to be like, no. Not the UBI, though. How much you want to bet? I know how banks work. I've dealt with enough of them. Because if you're getting the same thing that everyone else is getting, why would a bank include the $1,000 a month that you make from UBI? Because they're going to assume if you're an adult, you have that. They're going to have an algorithm that automatically factors that in. But that doesn't give you any inherent advantage. I'm just saying. I just feel like I feel like Yang doesn't really have a grasp of what's going on or how things actually work in the real world sometimes. Because, like, it needs to be understood that Yang was born into money. His parents are immigrants, but he himself was born into money, and he became more wealthy as he got older, and he's from the tech industry. Tech industry people get hyper focused, which is a good thing for their industry, but it is not a good thing for politics. Now, the last two things that I want to talk about. He said he wants to punish journalists or media or anybody in general who puts out accidentally or on purpose misinformation. And I was listening to how he would determine how that would be. And he basically was saying that the government would determine what's misinformation and what's not misinformation. And that's not a good thing. I was really uncomfortable with that, especially because we know the FBI already has a hit list out, not a literal hit list, but a list of journalists that they don't like. And it's all based on alternative media or independent media. Could you imagine Yang giving the power to the CIA to prosecute anybody that they believe is giving or pushing information contrary to the established narrative? No, 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 no. Oh my God. That's legitimately scared the hell out of me. And here's why it scared the hell out of me. He said specifically, well, it's not like a network like CNN would have any problems. They get it right 99.999% of the time. What? No, they don't. They literally do not. If they're not covering politics, maybe they get it right 50, maybe closer to 80% of the time. If they're just doing basic level reporting. But if we're talking about politics, if we're talking about analysis, if we're talking about narratives, the important stuff, they don't get it right 90% of the time. It's closer to about 30% of the time. That's only because they spell people's names correctly. Do you understand how dangerous it is? Where Yang is saying he would give power to the government to punish people for quote unquote misinformation. But then he says CNN is right 99% of the time. Nah, man, that's not cool. That is not cool at all. Once again, this is out of his mouth, not mine. He said this during his town hall. And I was like, let me rewind that shit. Let me rewind that. So that was problematic for me. That was really problematic for me. I'm sure that most of you all would probably agree with that. So my overall takeaway is that before, like when I first watched Andrew Yang's CNN town hall, I was just kind of unimpressed. But then I went back and I listened really hard. I went from being unimpressed to actually worried about the guy. Like I'm legitimately worried about him because I was reading his policies on his website. Like, for example, the man takes corporate money. You all know this. He takes corporate money. He takes lobbying money. That's the reason he was able to hit 80,000 before Tulsi Gabbard was. I'm not sure if he's using corporate bundlers specifically, but he was able to hit 80,000 donations and raise more money than a lot of even the other candidates because he is out in the open taking lobbyists' money, very much like Obama did, but nobody is actually checking. And he is pretending as if his campaign is being powered by the people, but it isn't. It's actually being powered by corporate lobbyists. I'm not saying his campaign has no people behind it. Of course it does. He's bribing everybody with $1,000 a month. But when you start taking corporate PAC money, when you start taking corporate lobbyist money, y'all know my motto. If I work for McDonald's and they're the ones who sign my check, what do I look like saying, hey, man, you saw that new Whopper Jr. with the bacon on it just dropped at Burger King. Hey, damn this Big Mac, go to Burger King and get that Whopper. I care about you more than anything else. No, that's not how it works. The candidates that don't take, thank you, SoCal, candidates that don't take corporate lobbyist money are in the primaries, Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren in the primaries. They're the only three right now. Cory Booker got caught. Kamala Harris got caught. Beto O'Rourke got caught. Pete Buttigieg never said that he wasn't going to take it. And currently, according to the recent list that just came out, Tulsi has the most progressive campaign finance because she's not even taking PAC money at all. Bernie's taking PAC money, but I assume that's going to be from Our Revolution PAC, which I don't really consider that to be that big of a deal. So, but that's it. So once, and by the way, Elizabeth Warren plans on taking all the PAC money and all the corporate money once she goes into the general election. So just had to clarify that. So yeah, basically, he just came off like a politician, which was weird to me because He supposedly isn't a politician. I'm multitasking here, so forgive me. But yeah, he came off as a politician, and he supposedly isn't. And I just personally feel like he was far and away a little too comfortable with a lot of the neoliberal slash libertarian slash the blame game on automation. When we know for a fact that if he's a businessman, he knows a little bit better than to try to blame everything on automation, because these disastrous trade deals are more to blame than automation for a lot of our issues. Income inequality isn't a matter of just income, right? Because income was even less. The grand total of income was even less in the 80s, but income inequality was far better than what it is right now, even though everybody on average makes way more money. Way more money doesn't mean way less income inequality. So, I'm going to give him a chance. I want to email him, and I'm going to invite him on the show. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to see if I'm going to push back on some of his issues. I don't think that he'll have, I mean, he went on Jimmy's show, and like I said, he seems like a nice enough guy. I don't think he's a bad person, but I do think he's a problem, to put it lightly. I think his policies, his advocacy, and his lack of understanding about how things really work in this world. Thanks for watching that segment of Mika Says Sukasa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.